Mine begins when I am 21. I am in my first relationship. I'm in love. I'm a religious studies major at Concordia, and my boyfriend lives in a loft in Old Montreal, which is extremely cool if you don't know. There's like big windows, and you're in a different part of town, and there's no cafes nearby, and there's horses and carriages and, us, religious studies students. I actually think, I was thinking about it earlier today, that it was one of the coolest times in my life. Not only was this my first love, but his loft was so cool. He didn't have a bed, it was just mats on the floor, which at the time was really amazing. And he had all kinds of weird religious iconography around, and I had that too. And it was awesome because we could dork out about those things. And we had a crew of people that we hung out with that were equally as cool. I still think they're some of the coolest people I know. And we were working on a religious studies magazine, like a journal that we named, what was it called? Shit. I'm so tired from my walk yesterday that I can't remember. Oh, I remember. It was called Local Knowledge from the Third Eye. I know. It was like the coolest religious studies journal at Concordia. And the only one, naturally. So I was living this very rich, what I thought to be philosophical, interesting life. Everything always smelled like incense and, philosophy and hope and love and, all the saints of all the religions. And on one very blissful morning in the loft, my boyfriend, he was making a big pot of chai that he was, okay, it was delicious. Fair point. It was delicious, and it took hours. It would take him hours to make this. So as he's like puttering with cardamom pods and stuff, I'm, smoking a clove and collaboratively making a drawing with someone in a sketchbook and fancying myself very la vie boheme. And it was a very blissful moment. And I'm standing in the kitchen with him, and in the loft, there was those big garage doors, that open. So we had that open because it was nice out. And then a pigeon flew into the loft, flew directly into an image above the stove, and the image was of Ganesh, a Hindu god who I believe's role was to remove obstacles. Anyways, pigeon comes in, flies straight into Ganesh, and lands in the chai. Street pigeon in the chai. The pot was it was a lot of chai. And he lands on it. And we're like, oh boy. Well, that's ruined, I guess. Is it? No, it is. He didn't have a bed, and so then yelling begins and freneticness and tools come out of the woodworks to try and capture the pigeon. So I have I remember the lid of the chai I'm using as a shield because I don't want the street pigeon to touch my skin, and wings, and we have oven mitts on and all kinds of tools. Somehow we get the pigeon inside a box. This is about a pet in a box also. Not so much a pet, but a sad wanderer. So we have the pigeon in a box. Things are sort of calm. And we look at the pigeon, and he's really kind of fucked up. His eyes are sort of rolling back. His wing is ajar. I don't know if that's the right. His wing doesn't seem correct. And he doesn't look well. And we realize he can't fly. Oh, it was heartbreaking and scary and fearful. And I felt like such a city girl in the moment. I'm like, if we touch it, will we die? And, but we started to get over that and started to feel a lot of concern and compassion for the bird. We didn't have internet in the loft, and so I found in the yellow pages, I called animal shelter control, whatever that is, and I said, we have a pigeon, we need you to come right away. They don't make house calls for pigeons, for street pigeons, ever, and particularly on a Sunday morning. And they said, there's nothing we can do. I was outraged. I'm like, how can it's not having an ambulance. Of course, you have to do something. We don't know how to deal with this. And the situation is getting more and more intense. And we don't even have like chai to get us through it, you know? The like pigeon in it. So we're outside on the front stoop on the street with a pigeon in a box, realizing that we have to kill it. Not because we're cruel, gigglers, but because the pigeon would not last. And people are coming, like slowly walking by on the street. They're having a Sunday morning. And one woman stops and we engage with her. And she said, oh, I just read this article that the city of Montreal actually poisons pigeons. They become insane and fly into things. And it's a way of like population control for the pigeons. It doesn't seem like a good idea. So now we have more evidence that the pigeon's not gonna last. We have to kill it. He's suffering so much and he looks so cray, like it's not good. And me, because I'm also very brave, like you, and my boyfriend was very sensitive, I said, I'll kill the pigeon. I'm gonna do it. We had like a lot of spiritual training. I like got in the zone and I was gonna do it. Obviously I couldn't do it. I thought I could, I couldn't. He had to do it. So he does it. He does it real quick and really meaningful and, with as much respect to the nice little animal as we could. And then we had a dead pigeon in a box. And we had to give it a funeral. So we went to the St. Lawrence River and we wrapped the pigeon in a blanket. We brought a lot of incense, different kinds of other like stones and herbs and funeral papers. Like we were very ritualistic at that time, but especially this was a big deal. Like we had just had to kill this pigeon because he wasn't well and we had to send him off. You have to understand, this was hours. We called a couple other people to see if they would come to the funeral, and they wouldn't. And what was so frustrating is that I felt like nobody understood. We were locked into this very bizarre, very intense life cycle moment. And the Ganesh was not lost on us. I'm like, flew right in there. Like, so we're trying to unpack, like, what does this mean, like, for us and the pigeon and, like, life and religious history and all. I mean, I'm telling you, we were in it. It is humorous now, but then it was big and it was really heavy. And so we had the funeral. We sent the pigeon off into the river. And I went back to my apartment where I had 3 roommates, and they're like, oh my God, how was your time? Like, did you have a fun sleepover with your new boyfriend? And I was like, you guys, something really intense happened. I tell them the whole story. They're like, oh yeah, bummer, I'm like, no, but it was really intense. This was me a lot in my early 20s. That was really intense. Like, maybe you don't understand. It was very intense. And I felt very alone in it. This guy and I eventually broke up. It was my first heartache as well. It was brutal. I had never felt those things before. Also pretty lonely. Of course, I healed up from it. Didn't really think about the pigeon much. And then 2 years after we broke up, I'm on the street in Montreal, walking around, and this woman comes up to me and she says, oh, I know you. I'm like, oh, you don't at all. I don't know you. Like, please stop talking to me. And people, I get a lot of strangers on the street wanting to tell me their problems and stuff, and especially then, and I wasn't up for it. And I said, I don't think you know me. She said, I know you. I'm like, okay, from where? Like a religious studies student event or what? Did you come to a chili and beer event or whatever? No. She said, I met you that day on the street when you guys had to kill the pigeon. And it was the woman who had told us about the poisoning. And I thought that pigeon story was one of the most strange, miraculous things that had happened to me, and nobody had ever understood. And now there was the breakup, so I didn't even have my spiritual ally in that mission. And then this stranger woman remembered. We hugged in recognition of that moment, and I felt less alone. So thanks for listening.